Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This is going to be the next in my series of videos going over the Uncle Iroh's Adventure Guide, the new Avatar Legends RPG book. This is going to be part 4, I believe, of this series. Part 1 was the legend NPCs, part 2 was the general lore of Jasmine Island, the new location this book introduces. Part 3 was the first adventure in the Kyoshi era, and this one is the fourth video in the series, and that is for the Roku era adventure, which is called Ceremonies and Secrets. So once again, as with the theming of this book, everything is related to Jasmine Island. So the Roku era adventure is also set on Jasmine Island, and like the other adventures, they are going to involve the legend NPC characters from this book. So for the Roku era, in this book, we got Princess Zaysan, who of course is Sozin's sister, if you're unaware, and also Monk Kandro, who is very important, leader of the Guiding Wind, this extra faction of the air nomads. And of course, these two are engaged to be married. There's a political marriage as part of their kind of goals to, fulfill the kind of ideals of the kind of Guiding Wind and kind of change the world to a certain degree. For Zaysan, of course, to attempt to kind of sort of overthrow Sozin to a certain degree. There is definitely a lot of story in the Roku era that we still need to find out about. This adventure, though, getting into it in a little bit more detail here, because of course you can see from the picture on the kind of cover for this adventure, the two legend NPC characters are there. Kandro and Zaysan are speaking to the people. This is effectively the starting point for this adventure, which is that they come to this island because other Guiding Wind members have been captured on the island by this Earth Kingdom representative, who I'll discuss in a second. And this is them kind of giving their speech to the people about, hey, free our people, and the heroes kind of get brought into play eventually after that. So the opening to this has to start with one of the other aspects of this book, which is the idea of generational play, and that these adventures are sort of set up in a way that what happens in the previous ones is sort of meant to affect the ones that happen later. So in this case, very directly, the Kyoshi era adventure was sort of Jasmine Island's first time where like an incident properly happened, the pirate attack from Tagaka. Here we see that there has been a response in the Kyoshi era after that adventure to that. And we now see the sort of status quo to a certain degree on the island and how that is planning to be used to take it over. So here's what it says at the very start as a brief summary. After centuries of productive tea trade, the Earth Kingdom has overstepped the boundaries set in a treaty created by Kyoshi, which has required the kingdom to protect the island. So straight away, that's a big thing. Kyoshi, in the aftermath of the first adventure, has come in, created a treaty sort of with Jasmine Island and her home nation, the Earth Kingdom, where the Earth Kingdom will sort of protect the island. They will have sort of a representation on the island, but of course it remains independent. And now that treaty is going to be attempted to be used by the Earth Kingdom to sort of try and gain control over Jasmine Island because of the key character outside of the legend NPCs in this adventure, and that is Magistrate Emerald. So the Earth Kingdom's representative on Jasmine Island, Magistrate Emerald, seeks to claim the island for the Earth Kingdom, and he has imprisoned 2 Guiding Wind monks who discovered his plans. Now, Kandro and Zaysan, foremost leaders of the Guiding Wind movement, have come to Jasmine Island to free their people. In light of their arrival, Emerald plans to seize control of Jasmine Island now by force if needed. Can the heroes stop him before he forces the last council member of Jasmine Island to surrender to the Earth Kingdom? So it's a relatively simple setup here, especially when I highlight the idea that Kandro and Zaysan are basically not really involved in the story beyond they bring the heroes into play to basically do everything, for the main reason being that they can't be seen to sort of act against one of the nations, so they can't really actively do anything in the story except advocate for the people of their movement, the Guiding Wind people, to be freed. But when fighting breaks out, this adventure goes to sort of great lengths to basically tell you to not use Zaysan and Kandro in any of the action, basically. It seems like the best you can maybe get to with the Legend NPCs is that if things get to the most sort of combat-focused scenario in this adventure, they will be forced to sort of defend themselves, but will always be very cautious about the political ramifications of if it becomes public that they had a fight against like Earth Kingdom forces on Jasmine Island, how that will affect the movement basically going forward. So apart from the setup here of like the Guiding Wind kind of plays a role in terms of what happens here, the actual leaders are only sort of minimally involved, and they effectively just create a scenario where Emerald feels like he has to move immediately. That's the setup here. So I'm going to bring up this image first. So this is the other image that is presented in this adventure. I'm not sure if it's meant to represent anything like super specific as such, as like a specific moment in the adventure, but I guess it's just to highlight that I guess during the era, this is what the people on Jasmine Island typically look like. Otherwise, I'm not sure if it's really representing anything in particular. I do think it's just meant to highlight that to a certain degree. Yeah, I guess there's maybe a little bit more green here, a little bit more Earth Kingdom here, kind of highlighting the Earth Kingdom is making a play through Emerald. It is noted later on that this is not something that he has been authorized to do. This is him acting on his own, and it gets explained later on that he feels that if he can take control of Jasmine Island, that the Earth Kingdom will sort of explain away the sort of illegal methods he used to take it, because they now have new territory, because it's the Roku era and all of the different nations are vying for different resources and control of, you know, territory basically. But there's a lot of scenarios in this where you're basically meant to sort of highlight publicly that Emerald has done stuff kind of illegally, and that will sort of restrict what he can do, because it's an era where sort of none of the nations want to be drawn out into an actual war. It's a kind of Cold War era where a lot of potential wars are stopped by Roku or kind of situations like this happening basically. So yeah, I'll bring up the character list sort of straight away so we know who we're dealing with here. And then we'll get into some of the details here. So really quickly, and then we'll go into it in more detail here. So Kandro, leader of the Guiding Wind, he's a legend NPC. Princess Zaysan, of course, the other Guiding Wind sort of leader, basically. Then we have, these two characters are effectively the two imprisoned Guiding Wind members. So we have Feng Ying and Sakura. And they have their own individual kind of backstories. One is from the Water Tribe, I believe, and one is the Fire Nation, if I remember correctly, but yeah, we'll get into it. Then we have Magistrate Emerald himself, who's sort of the main new character for this adventure, who, of course, is the bureaucratic administrator of the outpost here on Jasmine Island. Then, of course, he has not just Earth Kingdom soldiers, but he also has elite Earth Kingdom soldiers with him as well. They're kind of highlighting that if a fight does break out, you will need to do something special to sort of stop this, because he has a kind of small army under his control. So this is kind of why they're highlighting that, oh, just get the legend NPCs on your side and you can just take everyone out. Maybe not the best kind of course of action. You do need to sort of out what he is doing to kind of prevent that from happening, and this is why this character is in play. Captain Bo Ren, who is the leader of the Earth Kingdom forces, and as we get the idea, this character, if you can prove Emerald has done stuff illegally, has the loyalty of the soldiers, and so you can take them out from under Emerald's control. That seems to be the main way to actually resolve the conflict here, is through basically convincing her. Otherwise, she doesn't seem to play too much of a role in the story. We have Senten, who is the this is the remaining holdout council member. This is the last one that Emerald is trying to convince. And then we have the other two, which is Fu Hong and Zi Qin, who are the other two characters who are already effectively under Emerald's control through, you know, different situations, as we'll kind of get through, of course. So, yeah, we have, again, they go into the background a little bit more, and the whole idea of, yeah, the Roku era is a different era to the Kyoshi era. Kyoshi has done this, it's mentioned here as it's a simplified treaty to protect the island from further attacks. And it basically just says the Earth Kingdom forces will intervene to stop like pirate attacks and stuff like that. It's meant to be a deterrent more than anything else, just because the pirates wouldn't want the Earth Kingdom kind of military coming after them, basically. But there was sort of the expectation that this would never really need to be activated kind of at all. That, you know, there wouldn't really be that much of an Earth Kingdom kind of presence on the island, where like if pirates actually did attack, a lot of damage probably would have been done before any response would have actually happened here. So I like the idea that they highlight that, oh, Kyoshi did try to negotiate something, but it's maybe a little bit more of a simplified kind of thing here. It's not maybe the most concrete solution here, but it's not that Kyoshi just resolved this through violence, of course. I do like that there's a little bit of a balance there, but that potentially negotiations are still not Kyoshi's strong suit. But she did something here, is nice to get. So yeah, because of this treaty, and there's like an official sense of like the Earth Kingdom has an official agreement with Jasmine Island to do this, a certain amount of people are allowed at the outpost here. What's basically happened here is that Emerald has taken advantage of this to sort of bring more and more Earth Kingdom people to the island, to the point where the big detail in this is that one of the council members has been on the island long enough, originally from the Earth Kingdom, to now be just an officially elected council member for Jasmine Island, but they full on are part of like Emerald's kind of mission to kind of do that. The other one is just someone he's basically blackmailed into being on his side, and then he's effectively tried to do something similar with like Senten and win the next election effectively, and that whole sort of idea. And yeah, he is trying to basically legally, Emerald is trying to legally sort of take over this island. Kind of a Tarlock style situation kind of here, where he's just slowly doing things that seems okay, minor disagreement, but like it's okay. More and more Earth Kingdom people are coming. Oh, one of my people has basically been elected to your council, but they've lived here long enough. Okay. But the problem, of course, is that this has all been part of a greater ploy to make people sort of like the Earth Kingdom a little bit more, but it is ultimately with the aim of the Earth Kingdom taking over. So a lot of the initial kind of more Earth Kingdom people arriving here was met with an okay situation, because Emerald did some good stuff to sort of like improve the economy on Jasmine Island, and there was more trade with the Earth Kingdom, that sort of thing. But now he's accelerating his plans, and people can definitely see that there's a bigger Earth Kingdom presence, and a lot of the residents on the island are fearing that they're probably going to get taken over at some point soon. That's the sort of idea, basically. Now, what ends up happening here as part of the setup for this story is that Senten, again, the council member, the last holdout who's still sort of loyal to the island, is Guiding Wind related. Has friends in the Guiding Wind. And this is basically how Feng Ying and Sakura get captured. He asks them to investigate. They find Emerald's plans to sort of properly take over Jasmine Island for the Earth Kingdom. They get imprisoned, and this is what brings Kondro and Zason to the island. So that's basically like pretty much all of the setup. Then we get the cover image effectively happening here of them giving the big speech. Emerald, of course, is basically listening to this somewhere in the background along with the other islanders. And it's also noted in this kind of greater summary that yes, Emerald has no official permission from higher powers in the Earth Kingdom to take such an action. other than like the Earth Kingdom is allowed a certain amount of people on the outposts on Jasmine Island because of the treaty, but it's not meant to be used with this aim sort of in mind. And I believe later on it does just get alluded to that like even the Earth King wouldn't particularly like Emerald going against this, but Emerald is convinced that if he succeeds and gets the island under his the Earth Kingdom's control, he can sort of convince people that, hey, you want more land? Well, here we go, and it's got some good stuff. It'll help us. Which, given the situation here with Earth King Jylun, I'm getting a little bit confused in my head with the Earth King, but yeah, it's Jylun for this era, the Roku era Earth King. We're expecting something kind of like that from him, which is interesting. So, at this point, I'll address the structure that they present about this story. They say that there should be a flashback prologue, which is basically the player characters describing their connection to the island, and sort of personal connections with the other characters in the story. That sort of idea. Act 1 is that the companions are there in the crowd when Zaysan and Khandro give their speech. After the speech, Zaysan comes over and basically asks the companions to free Feng Ying and Sakura from the kind of outpost prison, basically. So that's the first big sort of action set piece, is just that, yes, your characters go to do that. They get the people out, and with them free, it just creates a situation where like you have to sort of find evidence of Emerald's wrongdoing and then, you know, work ahead to sort of basically create the situation where there's a countdown that effectively starts to happen where Emerald will get alerted at a certain point to the fact that the prisoners have been freed. They know he's up to no good, and he has a lot of forces that he can bring under his control. So you have to use this time before he's alerted to do something such as show the evidence that Emerald is doing things illegally to, say, Captain Wu 10, so that the soldiers won't follow him, and it's a much easier fight when it actually breaks out. That sort of idea. So yeah, that's that whole situation there. Act 3 is basically entirely just like a fight. It's Emerald trying to get like Senten, capture him, and have him sign the treaty, and trying to escape, you know, and that whole sort of thing. They say that how it ends is a bunch of different scenarios, but ultimately they settle on the idea that Emerald should be defeated, removed from the island, and that, you know, everyone should be united around the idea that Jasmine Island should remain independent coming out of this effectively. It should be another attempt by a group, but this time sort of the first time by a kind of quote-unquote nation trying to take over the island. And so we've had like a kind of independent pirate attack. Now it's not quite the Earth Kingdom, but, you know, related to the Earth Kingdom. You know, they're wary about the nations sort of in the aftermath of this. That whole sort of thing happening. And they just describe a bunch of scenarios depending on what actually happens. Like, what if the fighting happens full force? Like, you don't convince Bro Ren, but you know, save Senten and the other companions. What happens in that situation? What if you do convince the captain, and all these sort of other situations? They also present sort of an idea, if you are playing the 5 of them in a row with a sort of generational storyline, you can set up a situation for like the next generation to come back and kind of do something here. But yeah, they also set up the idea that yeah, the outpost from the Earth Kingdom gets pretty much abandoned after this, effectively. So the treaty, I guess, sort of like falls to the wayside after this because it got misused, basically. So yeah, let's get into going through the characters in a little bit more detail here. There is like other stuff going on here, but I think you get the sense for what sort of a story this is just from what we have so far. So, with Khandro, of course, it's just the sort of standard thing where, like, he and Zason come here as a united sort of leadership kind of group from the Guiding Wind to get their people out. Zason has a stronger connection to the island because she has visited the place before and she finds it beautiful. And she doesn't want the Earth Kingdom to kind of mess around with that. They have a more personal connection to what's going on here because they sort of see it as, well, what Emerald is doing here sort of represents what we're trying to fight against, which is the high-ups from different nations, you know, the nobility of different nations, thinking they can do whatever they want to sort of small islands like this. This is specifically what the Guiding Wind seeks to fight against. It's specifically what Zason tries to fight against with her sort of like anti kind of monarchist and like nobility sort of aspect that they have going on. So there's that whole idea. The only other point that they present is that Khondro and Zason both have slightly differing views on what they deem as like an acceptable way to deal with this situation. Khondro, as the air nomad here, is a little bit more, doesn't really want things to turn into like aggression, violence and fighting, whereas Zason is more direct and feels that this has to happen, which is why she is the one to bring the companions into play to sort of like break people out of prison, whereas he kind of more wants to negotiate, that sort of idea. But both of them are very aware of political kind of issues that could arise from them being, you know, involved in this ultimately. But yeah, they're not super heavily involved in this overall, so that's the kind of the interesting detail here. So there's that. Feng Ying is this female firebender character, of course, one of the Guiding Wind members who gets captured. After serving in the Fire Nation military for some time, Feng Ying sought a place of solace. She found it with the nascent Guiding Wind, who took her in for her own anti-aristocratic opinions and helped her find a new balance. Since then, she works with them. Few expect a former Fire Nation soldier to be associated with a movement of rogue airbenders, so she has a certain freedom of movement on the Guiding Wind's behalf. Other than that, the only significant thing is that they do note that one of her techniques is Breath of Fire, which highlights that she is a particularly skilled firebender. And of course, I think they get across like she's kind of a veteran as well. She's very experienced character here. So Breath of Fire obviously speaks to like, you know, you need to be somewhat skilled to know that technique. Sakuru, the retired merchant here, was once a successful and well-respected Northern Water Tribe merchant captain, sailing around the ocean visiting all manner of locations, but everywhere he went he saw signs of those with power and wealth taking advantage of those without. Even Jasmine Island had its wealthy tea-making families and its less wealthy workers. When he heard the message of the Guiding Wind, he adopted their principles and he happily lends his ships to help move them around the world. So you could see here a Fire Nation and a Water Tribe Guiding Wind member, which is sort of unique just by itself. So that's kind of cool. Magistrate Emerald himself, a cunning, ambitious bureaucrat with few scruples. He knows how to maintain perfect propriety, knows how to play a crowd, but disdains almost all other people and treats them as a means to his ends. He sees a path to supremacy in the Earth Kingdom bureaucracy through the massive profits of Jasmine Island, and he's determined to give it to the Earth Kingdom as a new province that he can govern and tax. He likes to defer and delay, to equivocate and quibble, keeping others distracted until he can secretly take the actions he deems necessary. He has already subverted many of Jasmine Island's institutions, like the Protectors and even the Council, and his plan will come to fruition once he subverts the last council member and gets the treaty to annex Jasmine Island signed. So that's what he's all about. There's this treaty that he wants the last member, sent in, council member, to sign to annex this, like, for the Earth Kingdom. And yeah, he's going to squeeze everything from this place. Interestingly, with him and his techniques, he is an earthbender, thick mud, but then dust stepping. So he gets that kind of somewhat unique skill there, dust stepping, highlighting that he's obviously a quite refined earthbender to be able to do something like that, a more delicate technique. So very reminiscent, I think, of like a Long Feng, a little bit of like Jonju maybe going on with him. So I think character-wise, I think they've done a good job with the main sort of quote-unquote villain of this grouping here. So that's the situation there. Then we have the elite Earth Kingdom soldiers. They are obviously the more powerful Earthbenders. It says they're loyal to Emerald, though they basically report to Wo-Ren. And then there's the standard Earth Kingdom soldiers, where these are the group that will side more with Wo-Ren. So the idea, more or less, is that to make the fighting maybe towards the end easier, if you convince Wo-Ren, you take the standard Earth Kingdom soldiers out, maybe some of the elite Earth Kingdom soldiers, but typically your final fight's probably going to be Emerald and some elite Earthbenders, which is, I think, is a more balanced fight for your group, plus maybe some other characters involved. Captain Wo-Ren is a loyal, well-trained officer in the Earth Kingdom military, a worthy and honored captain capable of managing the force. She was assigned to Jasmine Island with Magistrate Emerald. She didn't have a real stake in the position or the conflict at all when she came, but over time she's come to see Jasmine Island is the home to good people, and that Magistrate Emerald has ambition that might lead him into illegal action. She believes that Emerald still serves the Earth Kingdom with full legal authority, however, and won't turn against him without proof. So you need to actually properly convince her that he's doing something wrong to get her to turn against him. She is an Earthbender, techniques Earth Armor and Rock Column, which seems pretty standard for like a more military focused character. Zentan, of course, is a council member of Jasmine Island, native non-bender of Jasmine Island who studied with the air nomads. He became enamored with their philosophy of peace and even adopted his current name in their honor. While there, he befriended a young Chondro. He then left to return to Jasmine Island to focus on improving the island's cultural capacities while remaining close to the guiding wind. When he felt that the island was under threat by Emerald, he asked his friends, of course, Feng Ying and Sakura, to get proof of Emerald's bad intentions, and we know what happened there, of course. Last few characters here. Fu Hong is one of the other council members. Over the years, as Jasmine Island has grown and changed, new and different groups of people have added to the island's culture. That means the dominance of the tea growers, jasmine growers, and tea makers on the island's council became complicated by new groups and powers. Fu Hong, of the Fu family of Jasmine Island, still represents those interests on the council, but Emerald has evidence of some illicit trade and is using this to blackmail this character, and this is why Emerald has 2 out of the 3 council members under his thumb. So blackmail is the problem here for one of the kind of traditional family members here. The final council member, Ji Qin, is an Earth Kingdom citizen who settled on the island and has now been elected to the council. So kind of an outsider, but by the rules of the island, because everyone ultimately sort of settled there eventually, they sort of continue that on. If you live there long enough, you can eventually become someone who can be elected. They do mention that Emerald helped to support and sort of facilitate her winning, and no one maybe expected it, but it ended up happening, and so she is just fully loyal to Emerald, so long as he sort of continues to support her kind of ultimately. Otherwise, it's pretty standard, in terms of locations on the island. The only other thing is just that they note that there is an Earth Kingdom outpost, which I think is what this is maybe representing, that this shows maybe some of that outpost, but I'm not super sure. But anyway, that's the main kind of location. They do say he has a cave on the island, and that this is a secret place he can bring people to, where this is where he's hoping to have the treaty signed. Other than that, I'll just wrap it up with the list of pre-generated characters. Again, I don't like to overly focus on these too much, because if you're playing this typically, you probably are using your own characters rather than these. But I'll just quickly go over it here. We have Okiuk, the Adamant, stowaway from Agna Kella, who has adopted Jasmine Island as his new home and is determined to keep it safe at all costs. We have Chi Wei, child of the Chi family, an explorer of everything Jasmine Island has to offer, now worried she has outgrown the island and is seeking greater adventure. So another mention of the three main families on the island. We have Pushi the Hammer, a capable earthbender whose family tried to make them into a builder, but who would much rather jump into fights boulder first. We have Sukaya, a well-trained firebender hoping to turn Jasmine Island protectors into a capable defensive force. And Baljin, an airbender enamored of the guiding wind movement. And Kandro for the freedom that they espouse, looking for a chance to learn from the master. There's a little bit more detail if you go through the actual kind of pages covering these characters and how they're kind of made up, but that is the situation there. So I think it's nice enough. It's not the most substantial story. I think this one definitely has a real sense of keeping the main characters on the sidelines and not really wanting you to sort of overly kind of bring them into play that much, which is a little bit frustrating because Zae-san especially, we are always looking for when they're going to do like story content with her, and this one doesn't really like maybe advance things so much. She's just sort of involved in this. It's more of a world building for the guiding wind overall probably than specifically Zae-san is probably the better way to say this, which is the kind of, I think, the interesting part of this, along with Emerald and what he gets up to. But the setup in the aftermath of this is, of course, that okay, we've gone from first incident to first incident with a nation, and now we'll go into the 100-year war era adventure, which is super significant. This is where we have a massive canonical event in the history of the island where it kind of gets nearly destroyed, and we will cover that next time out and see more of the generational storytelling kind of come into play. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on the Roku era adventure here. This one is Ceremonies and Secrets. For anyone maybe wondering just at the end, like, why is it called Ceremonies and Secrets? Obviously, there's some secrets, I guess, involved just because not everyone knows everything. The ceremonies thing is that one of the things that maybe has the Islanders on edge is that I believe Emerald is planning to sort of cancel one of the upcoming ceremonies that's happening on the island. And this is a real sense that, like, oh, are we going to lose our culture if the Earth Kingdom kind of takes over? That whole idea. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments below. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.